So during coronavirus, lots of people have been in situations where they're locked in, they can't do what they normally do, and it's causing some people to feel a bit overwhelmed. Today, we're going to be looking at giving ourselves permission to be the person that we want in lockdown. Hi, welcome to the Secret Men's Business Podcast. This is Joey Buzzattle, and on today's show, we've got a very special friend of mine who's going to be talking about permissiveness and being able to achieve and accomplish the things that she has done so well, and that's build a charity, and how she's been able to give herself permission to take time out and to rest. I'd like to welcome to the podcast SUZANNE Wright. SUZANNE, how are you?
I'm great, thanks, Joe. Thank you for having me on today. It's always a pleasure.
Well, it's good seeing you again. We've interviewed you early in December on the podcast, and now we're interviewing you again. It's August, so it's about 8 months later. So tell us a little bit about what you've been doing in those 8 months since we last spoke to you. How is Shine and how is you?
Shine's doing remarkably well. Thanks for asking. Since we last spoke, I've taken a step back already from CEO and chair of the board. So that has gradually allowed me to lessen my physical input and the busyness of my mind. And we were just gearing up for our year of fundraising. You know, there's lots of events in the calendar, and we got kiboshed as everything else did with COVID. So, yes, it was a first quarter of the year of cancellation. But we've had lots of donations in, which is quite remarkable and unexpected. And so we're actually in a really good position.
So I guess on that note, do you feel that that COVID came in and sort of tsunamied you away from your plans, or did you adapt really well? Because, I mean, that's one of the things that I've been sort of sharing with listeners is during this time we need to adapt. So how do you think you managed that change?
On two levels. So they're connected in my approach. The first thing, I guess, was recognizing how little control we have. And the more that you resist and the more that you want it to be another way, the worse you're going to feel. And so I don't know where people stand about having faith in the universe or faith in a higher power or whatever it is that may be their thing. But I had to take a really good look at how tumultuous actually the last 4 years have been, trying to run a charity and have a job and all those kinds of things, and that it's always okay. It's always been okay. And that the very nature of life, we don't have any certainty. It's a fallacy and a myth that we feel certain about anything because it's totally uncertain. And so this new uncertainty was on a whole new level, it felt. But I had to just look at, has it always been okay? Yes, absolutely. And so somehow this will also be okay.
Yeah. I think you raise a good point. Strangely enough, we were talking before we went live, and that is, it's been 4 years. So how have those 4 years, I know it's been a good experience, but have those 4 years been tough on you?
Absolutely.
And what have you learned about yourself in the fact that, you're a gun-ho, you've set up this charity, but I'm more interested in not about the charity because we talked about that last time. I'm really more interested about what you've learned about yourself mentally and physically, about what you can do, and also maybe what you need to give yourself permission not to do.
Great question. So many things in there. One of the things that popped to mind first was that, so for the first 3 years, I was at the helm of it, and I got so wrapped up in being driven and this mask of busyness and, people complimenting me on, I don't know how you focus so much and I don't know how you get all this stuff done, and I thrived on the drive. What I didn't realize was I'd also attached my self-worth into there.
Right.
And what I guess I've learned the hard way, because I kept coming up to burnout, physical, mental burnout, which is why I relinquished the roles just over a year ago, started that process. So first I learned I physically couldn't keep going, couldn't mentally keep going like that. And then since December, January, and then since we last spoke, and then since COVID hit, that attaching self-worth to something outside of yourself really became apparent.
Yeah.
because all of
I was going to say we'll come back to that in a minute because I wanted to ask you, like, because I feel like I'm going through that now with the secret men's business, and again, you're an inspiration for this to be born. So thank you so much. But
Bless
I feel that I can relate to what you're saying. Did you feel that you had to be the person that did everything?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. So explain that. Like, what was it like for you to know that you were the one leading it? And then how did you feel to let go? Because you must have had to have permission there to go, Suzanne, enough. I need to
Yeah.
not do this anymore. Because I watched you and I was one of those people that said to you, how on earth are you doing this? But
Yeah.
now that I'm doing it, I sort of understand why you're doing it because you're in a passionate zone. So how did you realize that you had to stop and relinquish the control?
It's a combination of factors because in the early days, when you're setting up, no one else is going to do the setup. No one else is going to work as hard as you are for your own passion. And so, because you're in that driving seat, you feel like you need to do everything because the vision is in your head and you see how you want it to be. And then who else is going to do that for free with you?
Yeah.
And so you find yourself in this position, and hopefully, as it is for you already, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. But with that, you run out of the capacity. Now, I was terrible at delegating. I was too shy to ask at times. I thought, who else is going to want to do this with me for free? I believed in what I was doing, but didn't believe that people would give like that.
Yeah.
And I'm a terrible delegator, I found out. And so that combination of factors led me to completely out my capacity. So that was the breaking point. And then it was the letting go. It was just being responsible because all of a sudden I realized I didn't want to be a CEO of a charity, a not for profit. I want to be in the communication side of it and the creativity side. I'm the ideas and vision woman and an enthusiast. And so it was about being responsible. If something's going to grow, sometimes it's not within your skill set. And did I want to learn the skill set? No, I didn't.
Yeah.
And so,
because see, the problem that I face,
yeah.
and I don't know if you face it, is I'm really good at delegating, and I've got a great team, I have to say, and I'm really good with asking people to get involved, and they have. But I have this issue with, I guess, having a vision of what I want it to look like. And so I'm learning to let go of that vision and let them do what they feel like is their interpretation of it and be okay with that. Did you find that too?
Yes, but that was gradual. That was over a longer period of time.
Yeah.
Now I'm sat on the board, and so I get to impart my opinion of the vision and where it's going. But it's it's definitely now a collaborative. We're just rewriting the strategy for the next 3 years, and it's a complete collaboration of where
so you don't feel like if something comes up and you don't like it, that you don't stomp your hands on the table and say, I created this is going to be my way.
You know what? That never happens. And in fact, what I found is I've surrendered it so much because it's bigger than me. At times, I question myself because I used to be driven by this, like this fierce, possessive, almost like a possessed woman. And now I feel so placid and calm, and it's bigger than me and external to me. That sometimes I question myself and think, am I lazy now? This is where it leads into your permission, I guess, and that change, because where is my drive?
But don't you think? Do you really think that you're lazy? I think that you've just now allowed yourself to be realistic about how big it was.
Yeah.
Because imagine, right, if you were still doing everything by yourself.
Oh no, thanks. It would have collapsed, Joe.
Yeah.
You can't continue like that. But why I choose the word lazy, I guess, is that's my honesty. The extreme my mental monkey mind goes to because of the extreme contrast. I was an absolute workaholic, as you have to be to get these things off the ground.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. At the beginning, it is hard work, isn't it?
Yes.
Like the startup part is freaking hard. Like I reckon, but don't you feel like now? And I'm not bragging, and I'm sure you're not either. But don't you reckon that if we were to start another project, it'd be easy?
Yes.
Because we've got this idea now.
Yes, although if I'd have known what I was getting into, I wouldn't have done it. I'd have been too scared.
Really?
And so in hindsight,
Yeah, but I wouldn't have let you.
see,
I pushed you.
look, if someone had said to me 4 years ago, Suzanne, you're going to start an international charity and you're going to have these people working with you, and these are all of the things you're going to go through, and this is all of the money you're going to need to raise, and these are the problems you're going to face, and this is the bureaucracy you've got to go through, I'd have said, absolutely no, thank you. Who would take that on?
Yeah. So can we go
So
back to that
knowing how
self-worth,
hard it is.
that self-worth part of the statement you made? So now that you've, let go and you had a lot of self-worth being driven into shine, now that you're not doing that, in the last 12 months, what permission have you given for yourself to find self-worth in other ways, or are you still learning that?
Such a good question. I think it is a little bit of a work in progress. I've had to revert to some serious self-care routines to keep my mind in check, because suddenly, with the nature of COVID and lockdown and the fact that I've handed over so much responsibility, I've got huge gaps in my day
Right.
that I'm not used to having.
And you don't really like that, do you?
I didn't.
You
But I
didn't. Okay,
now.
so I
I
take that back.
love it.
Okay, good.
I love it.
So that was permission. You gave yourself
Yeah, that
permission.
was permission. Sometimes I have to outsource permission. I do this on a regular basis. I have to ring the people who now run Shine for me and say, I'm aware that XYZ needs doing, and what time scale are we on? Because I don't feel like working today. I don't feel like I've got the inspiration, or I just would rather read, or I'd rather go for a walk, and then they'll tell me it's okay to work
Yeah, okay.
when
Well,
I,
that's good though.
yeah,
That's good that you're
yeah,
able to listen to that. I mean, like I have to admit, I've never heard that from you before, so this is all new.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So where do you find the self-worth? Is the self-worth still coming through Shine in its different ways, or have you found other ways?
Quite different.
And is it
Quite
coming from you?
yes, yeah.
Okay. Gonna share a bit about that?
Oh, okay. I guess it's learning to acknowledge what I've got to give myself and those in my close network as just a normal human being. So, working with the fact that by being a good daughter, and I hate the word good, bad, the polarity in that, but being a present daughter who
Yeah.
connects with her mum regularly, yeah,
Mm.
who's a good listener, in regular contact, by being a good friend who picks up the phone and shares laughs with them and is available for that, by being a great teacher in the classroom, that's still my career, and being fantastic at that. All of a sudden, those things became enough
Right.
to to be a good human being, or to be a fulfilled human being. Whereas before I was looking at these grand, huge gestures and filling up all of my time so I didn't have to be still with myself.
Mm.
And now I am still with myself. And I remember one day coming to this realization, and it suddenly smacked me in the face of, maybe it's okay just to be you. What if it's, and then though, my head calls that playing small and not being on the court of life.
Yeah. Well, sometimes you need to be balanced. You need to be small and big.
Yes.
Otherwise, you can't just sustain being big all the time. And in
Mm,
your words, you call that a burnout, which,
yes.
you've got to recharge
Yeah.
and so on. I don't know if you mind me saying this, but like one of the things that I noticed through COVID that you started sharing, lives on your Facebook, which I would compliment you saying, "Oh, it's like my new soap opera." It's like I love watching all the truth and vulnerability. So I
Yeah.
don't want you to go into, maybe you don't have to talk about the detail of the post, but I want to know, how did you come around the permission to share your personal stuff to everyone? Like, what was that like? And how did you decide to do that? I remember your first post gave an explanation of what you were going to do, but I'm really curious to know what happened mentally for you to say, I'm going to actually sit here every day in my pajamas sometimes in a good mood or a bad mood. I'm going to talk about my truth. How did that come about?
Oh, it was so freeing.
I
Um,
know, I could tell.
It came about from a bit of an insane place, which is where usually my big ideas come from. About 8 months ago, I was diagnosed with ADHD. And just before lockdown, I was talking with a therapist that helped me with this particular condition, about how uneasy and impossible virtually it is to be still. And then lockdown happened.
Oh God.
I'm unmedicated. I don't take medication for it. And so.
And you live alone, right?
I live alone. I have no pet, no partner, no family in Melbourne. So no bubble or, yeah. So it was just me, myself, and I in this condition, and someone who's not used to being still. And I thought there's got to be other people out there with this, but also, just we have trouble sitting still as human beings, and there's going to be other people who are also living alone. What can I do to be useful, and also to help myself? And the internet is full of, validation of, look how hot I look at this filter, look at this pristine life. And I just wanted to go completely against that. And hey, this is me with no makeup on in my pajamas. This is me, chopping veg, giving a debrief of my day and how crap I felt.
I know, but like knowing you, and knowing your fear of being exposed like that, something must have shifted big time for you. Do you think it was just that dialogue with your therapist about sitting still and challenging that? Like something happened for you to bypass the fear and actually just be raw and be yourself, which was so, it was entertaining, but it was so real and vulnerable that it was compelling. It inspired so many. I mean, I was inspired, and I know other people reading your feed that people were inspired.
Yeah.
So, was it the fact that you were ready and you just thought, you know what, this is what I have to do?
I'm not sure that there was that much intention in it, to be honest, Joe. It was just one of those knowing things. It's part of a process. It's part of a process of me learning how to voice who I really am.
Right, okay.
This is happening. It was behind Shine, and then it was kind of through Shine, of me taking off these layers of masks that I've had for a very long time. I'm very passionate about sharing a message about life, about being authentic, and about healing, and shining the light out of the darkness within your story, kind of thing. It's such a cliche, but it's true. And I think each time I come up with something like this, it's not particularly intentional, but it's a new iteration of that process.
Okay.
Of me standing for what I believe in, of let's just be authentically us.
Right.
And so it's the next phase of that.
Yeah. So if our listeners, and you know that this is a men's podcast, but in reality,
I am so honoured this is a men's podcast and I'm here.
You're my first, you're actually my first woman guest. But I know men and women listen to it, but if people at home are listening to this and struggling with permission, like, you used to, and I guess I used to, we all have, what's some advice that you would give for people to sort of start to enter this permissive space rather than the space of guilt, doubt, shame, calling yourself lazy or calling yourself, because I think a lot of people agree with you when you said that if you're not doing anything, you feel like you're not doing enough or not doing any, that's an interesting thing, isn't it? People think that sitting down and chilling out or healing the body or getting some rest or energy is not good. So what advice would you give to someone that wants to give themselves permission to chill out a bit more, to have more balance?
A couple of things. I've had to be very aware of that mental chatter. I've been doing a program recently, The Artist's Way, just finished it, and it actually puts in a really useful way, and it calls it the blurts. So the blurts of, oh, you shouldn't be sat still right now, you're lazy. It's about catching those blurts and reframing them to, hang on a minute, I have done X, Y, Z already, and I'm giving myself permission to sit down now and do this.
Yeah.
So I've constantly had to keep going back and reminding myself, you have just worked your butt off for 4 years to get this thing off the ground. Now it is time to go within. It's okay. Or, yesterday you did this, so today you can do this. And it's that constant readdressing of that blurt that comes in my mind. And I guess to put it another way, it's looking at, is that really true? The story that you tell yourself.
Right, okay. Do you mind if I inject in there managing that with ADHD? Like, do you think that people with I know there's ADHD people listening, so does there need to be another layer, or is it the same regardless of the ADHD?
There's another layer, because funnily enough, I've just read a book called Scattered Minds, brilliant read, and even people that haven't got ADHD that I know have read it, and it's fantastic for human traits. And I didn't realize one of the key traits is this propensity to feel like they need to save the world.
Really?
Oh my God, it's part of my condition.
It's not what you do, is it? Of course you save the world. You're Wonder Woman.
So want the costume. So allowing ourselves to be still, fighting that innate need to save the world, and also this constant ADHD people feel like they always should be doing something else, no matter what it is.
Right.
And so you can feel very dissatisfied in whatever state that you're in, like you always need to be moving and doing something different. So at the start of lockdown, I had whiteboards in 2 rooms with lists on of meditate, clean a drawer out, fix something, stand on the balcony, boil the kettle, have a bath, light a candle, some activity-based things and some sit the heck down things, so that I could go and look and, right, okay, what do I need to do now? To give myself permission to do something from the list, because otherwise I was ping-ponging around the house like a pinball machine.
And what about now? Do you find that you need that list still?
No, they've gone.
Yeah. And so, are you able to sit down and just do nothing for half an hour without going, yeah, so that's okay?
Yep.
Cool. That's really
good. And
good.
that's very different from lockdown 1. So it's really an illustration of brain training, Joe. You know, I'm constantly in training to do nothing.
Yeah. Suzanne, thank you so much for giving us permission to come on this podcast today. It's been a pleasure. I mean, always talking to you, I feel like we learned some stuff. And the reason why I love talking to you the most is because you really bring in this female perspective, but you talk to us men in a way that is clear and understandable. So thank you for that.
Oh, pleasure. And thank you for having me on.
That's okay. So thank you, everyone. You've been listening to the Secret Men's Business podcast. I'm Joey Buzzattle. The next podcast will be released on Monday morning on YouTube and Spotify, iTunes and Podomatic. Have a great week, everyone. Bye.